Welcome to the Evangelism Podcast. I'm Daniel King, and I am excited about telling people about Jesus. And I also love coaching other evangelists and missionaries and pastors, helping them to develop their ministries. And so today we have a very special guest who happens to be an expert in helping ministries. Brad Stine, thank you for being with me today.
Thank you, Daniel.
So Brad Stine, he really has a heart for helping ministries get organized and raise support. And one of the first steps he recommends is developing a master plan for your ministry. And so this is something that we met together about back when I was first starting in ministry. I was very young. I was still a student at Oral Roberts University. And you sat me down and told me, Daniel, you need to develop a master plan for your ministry. And you helped me do that. And it helped me in articulating the vision that God had given me. And we used it later to raise money at a banquet. And I gave it to various businessmen to show them what I was doing. And so, Mr. Brad, could you tell us a little bit, what is a master plan and why is it important to have one?
Well, in business, they call it a business plan. In ministries, they call it a ministry plan. But I use the catch-all phrase, master plan, which is kind of it's a business plan, but it's also a ministry plan, and it's the master's plan.
The master's plan. Now,
master's plan, yeah.
You understand how businessmen think because you were a businessman for many years.
Yeah.
And then once you retired, then you started helping ministries. And now you've helped many ministries besides my own, maybe up to 300 or even more ministries that you have sat down with, helped them to develop a master plan. And really the purpose of it is to help relate to businessmen, the people who have the resources to support a ministry. Every ministry would have a visionary, someone that God gives a vision to, but along with the visionary there needs to be provisionaries, people who have resources to invest in the plan that God has. So talk to me a little bit about, from your background as a businessman, why is it important to have a business plan or a master plan in order to communicate what God has called you to do?
Well, the majority of the business people realize that if they're going to expend thousands and sometimes millions of dollars, and sometimes they have investors involved, they have to have a definite plan that they can follow that'll help them to earn that kind of money and to help them to stay on schedule with what they plan to do, so they don't go off on, you might say, rabbit trails. They stay focused. And I think that's also true probably with ministries. Over the years I've seen so many ministries who go out on the field and they fail and they come back brokenhearted. But I've also seen some ministries go out on the field and just really do a great job. Get a lot of people born again, and a lot of good things happen. I've seen the good, the bad, and the ugly. And so it occurred to me that maybe I needed to put together a master plan that would help these people to stay in focus.
Well, I hope you would include my ministry in one of those good categories. Ever since we put together the master plan, it was about 20 years ago, I think, that we worked on it. And since then, I've gone to over 70 nations preaching the gospel. We've seen over 2 million people get saved in our services. And today, and the goal was to become a soul millionaire, to lead 1 million people to Jesus.
I remember
before
that.
I turned 30 years of age. And we completed that goal.
Yeah.
In part because of you helping us to put together this master plan. So today for this podcast, I went and dug in my files and pulled out one of the copies of the master plan that that we had developed, and I still look very young in this. I'm surprised anyone would give me money looking that young.
Well, you still actually look very young.
Well,
it's relative, though.
20 years older now than I was then, but and I remember us going through this. We did a vision, a mission statement, strategy, and I articulated some of what God had called me to do. And in here, in my master plan, I had several areas that I really wanted God to help us to do. So one was massive miracle crusades. Another area was literature distribution. Another area was leadership training. And in that master plan, we had specific tactics and different ways of accomplishing that. And so I'm excited to tell you today that 20 years later, all those things that we put in the master plan, God has brought to pass, which is just amazing.
That's amazing.
That if you will write the vision down, then he who reads it may run with it. They can go and do something great for God. And we've been able to raise a lot of money from businessmen and different people over the years, just showing them this master plan, and then I've refurbished it and reused it in different ways, in different ways of articulating the vision. So tell me some stories about some of the other ministries that you've been able to help. I see here you have a variety of master plans in front of you.
Yeah, I just brought a few with me. Just I've got quite a few of them, but I've just picked out a few that might be of interest.
Yeah. Now I remember that you break the master plan down into several segments.
Yeah.
And so I was looking on your website for the Harvest for the Homeland Foundation.
Yeah.
And in your master plan, which you have there as a sample, you have several specific areas. You've got the vision, and then you've got the mission, then you've got a page on objectives, a page on strategy, a page on tactics, a page on teamwork, and then a page for connection, how people can connect with you.
Yes.
So let's go through those one by one.
Sure.
And if you could define those for us, and then explain why it's important and maybe how to articulate this.
Okay, I'd be glad to. Now, Daniel, everybody is called by God to do something. We all have a calling on our life. And that calling, we did not come up with that calling. That calling took place before we were even conceived. We have no control over it. We can choose not to do it, but the calling was put in place before we were even conceived. And that calling, if you would, pretend that that's a point, that point right there. That's the calling. We have no control over that. Now, when God wants us to start achieving that calling, he gives us a vision. Now, can this camera see this?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. If this is the calling and this is the vision, then that's the direction we should go.
So you have the calling and you have your vision, and you're headed in that direction, and it's a straight line.
That's exactly right. Now, the calling does not change. That happened before we were even conceived. Now, the vision can change, but the calling does not change. So if the calling is, let's say, your elbow, then the vision is out here, and it gives you the direction. You have to have 2 points in order for a straight line to have direction. And so since the calling doesn't move, it's immutable, it stays put, then the vision, as it modifies and corrects, that gives us the direction that we should go. So the first thing in the master plan is the vision.
The vision. And you define a vision as an aspirational description of what an organization would like to achieve or accomplish in the mid or long-term future.
Yes.
And so the vision is where you're headed. It's the destination that you're headed towards.
Yeah.
So I think in my case, my calling ever since I was very young was to be an evangelist. Like God put that calling on my life. I'm called to be an evangelist. It was spoken over me by several prophets. It was a desire that God put in my heart. It was confirmed by the books that I read and the things that made me excited. But within the calling of being an evangelist, there's a variety of things that I could have done. I could have done local church evangelism. I could have done one-on-one evangelism. I could have done street preaching. But the vision, as I articulated it, became to do massive miracle crusades like Billy Graham used to do back in the day. And so that was the vision. So the calling to be an evangelist and the vision lined up together.
Now, that's exactly right. Now, many people, they will follow the vision that they want to follow. And it may be pretty close to what the Lord would have them to follow, but maybe not exactly. Maybe their vision is here, but they're actually operating over here, or they're operating over here. And we have to be very careful that if we're following two visions, that is division. So to protect ourselves from division is we need to inquire of the Lord. Take our time, don't be in a hurry, inquire of the Lord, and find out what He wants us to follow.
Yeah, if you aim an arrow at two different targets, you're going to miss both of them. Mm-hmm. So you got to know which target you're going for. And I like what you say about taking time to find the vision. Yeah. I think it would be a good idea to spend some time in fasting and prayer, really get the Lord's direction, what the vision of your life is supposed to be. So if you were sitting down with someone who wanted to be in ministry but hadn't really articulated what they wanted to do, what advice would you give them for writing down their vision or finding the vision?
Don't go off half-cocked. Take your time, pray, fast, seek the Lord. Take your time before you jump out there. The vision has to do with what you're responsible for. And many, many people follow their mission. And mission and vision are two totally separate things. Many times I've seen vision statements and I've seen mission statements and I've seen mission and vision statements and vision and mission statements. And there seems to be a lot of folks that don't understand the difference between the two. And the difference is real simple. The vision is what you're responsible for, and the mission is the authorization to proceed. And they don't happen at the same time. First you get the vision, and that's what God has made you responsible for. That lines up with your calling. And then as you train and learn and develop what that vision is that you're supposed to follow, then later comes the mission. It's like in the military. In the military, the vision in the United States, the vision in the military is to uphold the Constitution of the United States. That's our vision. And our mission comes later. It comes after boot camp. It comes after other basic training and so forth. There's a time lag between vision and mission. Mission being the authority to proceed.
So I noticed that in your master plan, you actually have the vision and the mission on two separate pages.
Yes.
So you first have the vision, which was this aspirational description of what the organization would like to achieve. And then you define a mission as a written declaration of an organization's core purpose and focus that normally remains unchanged over time. So let's just create a hypothetical here. Say you have someone who comes and says that they have a desire to feed the poor. Mm-hmm. So give me a vision for a ministry and give me a mission for that ministry. What would that look like?
The vision could be that you have an inner feeling, a gut feeling that there's a lot of people out there going to bed hungry at night. A lot of children that are hungry and they're not learning properly because they're hungry. And it stirs you. You realize, I need to do something about that. And the vision starts to form in your mind that I need to do something about that. And it very well could be tied to your calling. God may have called you to do that. And as you proceed to explore that area and read up on that area and learn about that area, and it starts to become kind of a part of you, then it's very possible that is what you're responsible for. And that gives you the direction to proceed. Now the mission. Let's say that you know that your vision is to help people to have food. But to get on an airplane and to go to a foreign land and to actually start developing feeding programs, or even here doing this in the United States, you better know what you're doing. You better learn up on the customs. You better learn up on what's really causing the food shortage to begin with. You better know what you're doing before you step out there and start literally doing it. I personally have seen several cases where people went into the ministry too quickly. They tried to proceed on their mission before they were ready, and they came home in a box, in the bottom of an airplane. Their vision and mission totally destroyed.
So the planning process is very important. And the Holy Spirit is very much involved in the entire planning process.
Absolutely.
I think it's interesting that God put the date for the marriage supper of the Lamb on his calendar over 6,000 years in advance. So God's a planner. He's thinking ahead.
He is a planner.
And we should be planners too and spend time doing the research, doing the looking at different organizations that are doing something similar, looking at the demographics of the area that we feel called to, and then articulating how we're going to actually fulfill the vision that God has given us. All right, the next step is objectives. And so you define objectives as a specific result that a person or system aims to achieve within a time frame with available resources. In general, objectives are more specific and easier to measure than goals. And so you define goals as the result or achievement towards which effort is directed, the aim or the end. So you choose to articulate objectives. And how are objectives different than goals? Why do you choose to make that distinction?
Well, they are actually quite similar. I have, over the years, I have consulted with many professors at different universities, and military people, sales people, accountants. I've really delved into this a lot. And basically, goals are the way that athletic people measure success, and how sales people measure success. Objectives is more or less how military people measure success. So objectives and goals, they're very, very similar. They're just used by different types of people. But empirically speaking, they're approximately the same thing. Now, as it relates to the master plan, first you have your vision, and that gives you the direction. And then you've got your mission, that's where you develop your the authority to proceed. And then comes the objectives. And the objectives basically are breaking down that mission into smaller pieces so that you have a way to measure your success. If your objective is to provide 1,000 meals a month to poor people, and you hit that 1,000, then you accomplished that objective. It's a way of measuring.
So an objective can be more specific. It has
Yeah.
maybe a time frame attached to it.
Yes.
So an objective would be, we want to feed 1,000 people every month. And then that's very specific. That's something you can measure. Either you did it or you didn't do it, and you can know whether you're hitting something specific. Whereas a vision is more aspirational. A vision is, feed the hungry.
Yeah.
It's a big goal. We want to. But then you take the mission and say, we want to feed the hungry in South Tulsa, in these 3 neighborhoods. And then an objective would be, we want to give away 1,000 meals in these neighborhoods each month.
Yep, that's exactly right. It's a further breakdown. Your vision is tied to what you're called to do. Your mission is the authority to proceed after you've gotten specific training. And then your objectives is breaking down that mission into sections. Yeah, that's exactly right. It's measurable.
Then the next word that you use is strategy, which is a plan of action or policy designed to achieve a major or overall aim or end. So then explain to us what strategy is.
Okay, let's say that your vision is to feed people that are disadvantaged. Your mission is to feed people in LA, in a certain neighborhood. And it's more narrowed down. And the way you're going to accomplish it is you're going to have some objectives. One of them might be to have a weekly meeting where the people come and get some groceries or whatever it is. And then the next level, the strategy, is how you're going to do it. The objectives is what you want to accomplish. The strategy is how you're going to do it. For example, in the military, if the objective is to take hill number 714, the strategy might be, we're going to use tanks and we're going to use airplanes, but we're not going to use foot soldiers because there's a cliff and we can't get up it very easily. So we're going to use airplanes and we're going to use tanks and shoot. In other words, what equipment you're going to use, or what method you're going to use, how you're going to accomplish the objective.
And then the next level is tactics, which is done for use in immediate support of a strategy. So a tool, plan, or procedure to promote a desired end. So you have the strategy. We're going to use tanks and planes to take this hill. And then what would be the specific tactics? Is it the route the tanks are going to take to the top of the hill?
Tactics is rolling up your sleeves and doing it. I have run into many people over the years. They've got great ideas. They've got it all planned out. They've got it all written out. But they don't actually roll up their sleeves and do the work. They think about it, but they don't actually do it. And tactics is hands-on, getting your hands dirty, getting in there and literally doing the grunt work, making it happen. That's tactical. So, as it relates to the tanks and the aircraft, that is, who's going to go in first? Is the tanks going to go in with air support, or is the air support going to go in and soften things up so the tanks can get in? In other words, that's where you literally figure out every little detail of how you're going to roll up your sleeves and get in there and make it happen.
And then the next page in your master plan is labeled teamwork, which I think is very important, especially for the visionary, because anything that God calls you to do, He doesn't call you to do alone. If you could do it by yourself, it's not a big enough vision for God to be involved in. And so He gives visions that are going to require other people, other talents, other resources. And so teamwork is the way to invite other people to be involved. Particularly one of the businessmen that you give the master plan to. You're inviting him to join the team and to participate in the vision, the mission, and being involved in helping to financially support what you're trying to do. And I like the phrase that those who plant and those who water and those that harvest all share in the same reward. That's and right. So whether you're the one who is planting or you're watering or you're actually out there harvesting, whether you're the evangelist going out there and preaching on the platform, or you're the businessman who writes a $50,000 check to send the evangelist, you both share in the same reward in heaven. And so teamwork, you want to talk a little bit about teamwork and why it's important?
But I would like to make a comment just before that. We've all heard the scripture, faith without works is dead, being alone. Right?
Yeah.
And we've heard faith is the substance of things hoped for. Right?
Yeah.
Now let's try this on for size. Let's look at the word strategy. Above the word strategy is objectives. All right. Faith is the substance of things hoped for. Or in other words, strategy is to help accomplish your hopes, which are your objectives. You cannot get your objectives accomplished if you don't have a strategy to how you're going to apply it. Now, conversely, below the word strategy is the word tactics. That's where you roll up your sleeves and do the work. Right. Faith without works
is dead.
Is dead. So I submit to you that faith has a lot to do with strategy. It's between the two. It's below the objectives and it's above the tactics. Now, let's try that on for size. You open the Bible, and that Bible, along with other things, tells you how to do things. It tells you how not to do things. It's a book of strategy. It's a book of a lot of things, but it is also a book of strategy. If you do this, this is what's going to happen. If you do this, this is going to happen. Do this, don't do that. Do this, don't do that. It's a book with strategy, and as a result of that, you accomplish your objectives, and you are able to achieve through tactics the end result. That's very scriptural. And I have seen over the years, I've talked with different people in different walks of life, military people and college professors and so forth. And they go, "Where did you get that?" I said, "Out of the Bible. It's there." They said, "Oh, I like that. That's right."
Yeah, I like how you're attaching these military or business terms to biblical terms.
Yeah.
Because there's a parallel. And one of the best manuals for business is actually the Bible. You can learn a lot about business looking at the Bible.
Now, as it relates to teamwork, which you asked that question, and I haven't forgotten it, when everybody does their part, some people, their job is to plan the whole plan. Some people's job is to implement. Different people have different functions in the body of Christ. And if we'll just stay in our lane and concentrate on our part. It's like when I was in school, I used to be in relay races. And the instructor said, if you're in a relay race, you put your hand out there, put it back slightly, and do not start running until you feel that baton hit your hand. And when that does, don't look back. But when it hits your hand, grab it and run. And stay in your lane. Don't be thinking about the guy next to you and hearing his footsteps. Or if you turn and look at him, you may fall and hurt yourself. Just concentrate on your part of the job. And if you, as a team, will each do your job, as a team, you'll get more accomplished.
That's a great insight. I mean, ultimately, we are all running for the prize that Jesus has for us. And none of us do it alone. Do you think that some people try to be visionaries when really they maybe would be more suited for working at the tactical level?
Yes.
And how would you coach someone who is in that situation?
If you are a visionary, you probably know you're a visionary. And I tell people all the time, sit down. If you're the top dog in your ministry, if you're the visionary, occasionally someone will come up through the ranks that's also a visionary. And if you're not careful, you will consider them to be a threat to your organization. And in reality, only a visionary can train a visionary. You cannot relegate that. When they come up through the ranks, you need to identify, are they there to hurt you, or are they there to learn from you? And if you see that they're there to learn from you, you need to train them. And they may not see things exactly like you do, but if they're going to learn from you and then go off into their own ministry, then you've accomplished what God wanted done. But if you sit there and start butting heads, you could destroy that new visionary. And they never do go into the ministry the way that they were supposed to. Now, the visionary has under him provisionaries, connectors, facilitators, recipients. Now, a team has 5 types of people. Visionaries, there's usually one of those at the top. Sometimes there's a second one, but they're usually moving on into another thing. Then you got the provisioners. They're the ones who provide the necessary finances, equipment, etc. to the visionary. Then you've got your connectors. They're the people who hook different people together. A lot of them don't actually do the work. They don't actually roll up their sleeves, but they're very valuable because they get the visionary introduced to somebody who can maybe help them financially or whatever. Then you got your facilitators. They're the people who roll up their sleeves and do the grunt work. You gotta have them. You know, you can sit there and plan till the cows come home, but if there's nobody willing to roll up their sleeves and do the grunt work, it's not going to get done. But the last one is the most important one, and that's the recipients. For example, in a family, there's a mom and a dad, and say a couple kids. The kids are the recipients, but the kids don't remain recipients. They grow up and they are the future generation of visionaries and provisionaries and connectors and facilitators. Recipients are the ones who keep growing up. And so in a ministry, if you're in charge of a ministry, realize that the recipients are only temporary. They're going to become future, one of those other four. And so you gotta love on them, change your diapers, feed them, encourage them, hug them, and affirm them. And they will grow to become one of the other four.
That's a great insight. I love it. All right, so if you're putting together a master plan, in your master plan, you have one page devoted to each of these items. And it's not completely full of text. You might put pictures that communicate the vision there in the master plan. And so you would have one page for the vision, and then one page for the mission, and then one page for specific objectives you're trying to achieve. Then you've got your strategy page. You've got your tactics page. You've got your teamwork page, and then the connection page. So really a master plan isn't that long. You've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 or 8 pages. You might need to put one or two more pages in, depending on how many objectives you have and how much you want to talk about your team. But you just have this short little document, and then you're going to use that document to bring in support for your ministry. And play the part of a businessman who's looking at this. Why would a master plan be important to give to a businessman that you're asking for money?
Well, business people in general, and there's a lot of women that are very, very good business people. But business people in general, they have trained themselves or have been trained to concentrate on the goal ahead of them and to not allow themselves to be distracted by events or issues that's going to knock them off of their objective or their goal. And so business people, for that reason, can usually spot another business person. Just like a coach can probably spot the coaches, or the instructor or college professor he can pretty well spot those who are in the educational area. Business people can spot those people. And when they see that you, as a minister or a missionary, have a definite plan, they will tend to gravitate toward you because they recognize that you understand that this stuff don't just happen. You have to plan. They call it plan the work and work the plan. That sounds oversimplified, but there's really a lot of truth to that. First you plan your work, and then you work your plan. Because I'll tell you, in the 11th hour, it's late at night, lights are off, you're laying there in bed, you haven't fallen asleep yet, and if you don't have a plan, you probably are going to have a hard time to fall asleep because you're wandering, you're wavering. And if you have a plan and you know that it's of God, you've taken the time and you know it's of God, you know that you can proceed on that plan and that God's with you. And if God's with you, nothing can be against you. And if God's not with you, don't proceed into it in the first place.
Well, if you're just starting out in ministry, I'd encourage you to take the time to develop a master plan. If you want more information on how to do that effectively, you can go to Brad Stine's website, harvesthomeland.org, and you'll see more information there on how to be effective at putting together a master plan. Brother Brad, thank you so much for spending some time with us today.
There's one more little comment.
One more comment. We need one more.
When you go to the website, that master plan is not a normal master plan. That's got all the elements in it. It's kind of like a menu when you go in a restaurant. You don't order the whole menu. You pick up something that you need. And that master plan on the website has just about everything packed into it. But you, in actuality, you use only portions of it.
Well, thank you, Mr. Brad. It's wonderful to have you on the Evangelism Podcast, and thank you for coaching us through the process of putting together a master plan. God bless you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Daniel King is on a mission to save 1 million souls a year, but he can't do it alone. Would you consider sowing a financial seed today? To give, please visit www.kingministries.com.